A ringraziare il collettivo Chiaroscuro per avermi coinvolta in questa giornata ricchissima di appuntamenti molto interessanti, come la prossima Masterclass Rosco. Don't close the curtains, have a backdrop. Questo è il titolo della Masterclass, che prevede in visione istantanea su questo LED il segnale video di 2 macchine da prese presenti all'interno del teatro, in realtà è proprio qui dietro, che riprendono un fondale riproducendo nella visione un interno del salone con affaccio su grandi grattacieli di New York. A moderare la Masterclass il direttore della fotografia del collettivo Chiaroscuro, Alessandro Pesci. Sarà con noi anche Rosco Backdrops Creative Specialist Sarah Horton.
Mauro Pescetelli.
Che non lo vedo, però ci sarà.
Mauro, vieni. Gaffer.
Ciao Mauro. E Giuseppe Rocco Bene. Ricco Bene, scusatemi. Va bene, vi lascio iniziare la Masterclass. Se poi ci sono domande, spero di sì, sarò felice di fare la valletta e venire da voi per arricchire questa Masterclass. Buona visione.
Allora, grazie a tutti per essere qui, una brevissima presentazione. Sara rappresenta la Rosco, lei è una scenografa che fa delle foto straordinarie per questi fondali. Ringraziamo lei per essere qui, la Rosco per aver dato l'opportunità di fare questa dimostrazione interessante nella parte posteriore del teatro. E grazie veramente a tutti di partecipare, ce la metteremo tutta per essere chiari, semplici e veloci. Vai con la clip, Ale. Vediamo cos'è un fondale. Let's see what it is.
Ma che c'è avuto? Una discussione con tua moglie?
Allora, posso fare qualche domanda anche a lei? Per esempio, cosa c'è nel cestino?
Ma è buono! Ma quella senza manco aprirlo mi regala a me. E io lo do a mia cognata.
Lei lavora con la signora?
So esatta, sì.
E c'era anche in quel film dove faceva l'aviatrice?
No, mi aveva mandato via. Ma poi mi è venuta a cercare. Non è cattiva, però da quando c'ha presso quello si crede una papessa. E lui con tutti i suoi stivoli, i suoi pennacchi, quando la vede come si mette su attenti. Oh, io non ho detto niente.
Stia tranquilla.
Stanno a preparare un film colosso.
Si può entrare?
Ace,
che vuoi?
vattela a piangere culo.
E qua affaretto perché non ci metti il pane bagnato dentro al latte? Con una nottata va via.
Grazie.
Ma di che?
Ace, no, sta a pensare una cosa.
Che cosa?
Perché non te la vai a piangere culo?
Volevamo iniziare con una clip che ci mostrasse sia quanto è importante un fondale nel cinema, sia in una sintesi brevissima vedere come il maestro Fellini utilizzi l'idea proprio un'idea di cinema, no? Cioè una manovalanza semplice che però produce un'immagine formidabile e fondamentale per il suo cinema, no? Quindi questo è un fondale, è qualcosa che quando è in scena spesso non siamo neanche in grado di riconoscerlo, e i fondali hanno una loro storia che poi Sara spiegherà meglio ma i fondali nascono come la prima pittura che passa dentro le inquadrature cinematografiche, quindi sono fondali dipinti, espressivi. Georges Méliès dipinge fondali di fantasia, tutto. E poi pian piano passano a essere fondali proprio dal forte carattere realistico, praticamente nel cinema in bianco e nero Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin neanche si vedono, e poi arriva l'epoca d'oro della grande Hollywood, dove iniziano a dipingersi questo intrigo internazionale, la collina dipinta, e praticamente nel teatro di posa inizia a diventare importante, visto che il cinema si faceva in teatro di posa, diventa fondamentale vedere cosa c'è fuori dalle finestre, e quindi diventa un elemento narrativo fondamentale. Consideriamo che è un periodo dove non c'è troppa attenzione alla realtà degli effetti, ma c'è una allusione agli effetti, per cui abbiamo degli attori che vanno in automobile ed è evidente che c'è una doppia pellicola dietro che scorre, no? Quindi è un periodo dove si lavora sull'allusione alla realtà, non è così importante che sia esattamente la verità assoluta, e c'è infatti anche tutto questo è sostenuto da un sistema, diciamo, fortemente ingegnerizzato. C'è un'illuminazione accademica fatta di 3 punti luce, di taglio, diffusa e controluce, quindi c'è un codice per cui quando si entra in un film comunque quegli attori non saranno illuminati in un modo realistico, ma saranno illuminati in modo artistico, ma con uno schema ingegnerizzato fortissimo. E il sistema nasceva dal fatto che le pellicole erano estremamente poco sensibili, quindi per renderle, pensate che un film come Via col vento era, per chi conosce il tema, era 12 asa di sensibilità, qualcosa di difficilissimo da gestire, per cui con questo schema di illuminazione si poteva stagliare il buio e dividerlo e rendere visibile qualcosa. Quindi i fondali nascono all'interno di questo schema fortemente ingegnerizzato. E man mano che le pellicole crescono di sensibilità, a un certo punto Nouvelle Vague francese, italiana, soprattutto la Hollywood degli anni 70 esce dal teatro di posa, c'è una sorta di ribellione a uno schema così fortemente industrializzato, e succede che inizia a esserci uno dei vari problemi che si crea, è il rapporto tra l'interno e gli esterni, e vediamo che miracolosamente svaniscono gli esterni dalle finestre e appaiono finestre bianche, tende. Praticamente il fondale si perde perché è difficile farlo, ci sono energie luminose differenti, in interni si usa il tungsteno, in esterni si usa la lampada scarica, iniziano ad arrivare le scariche, oppure comunque c'è una differenza di colore che fa sì che di fatto si affermi questo codice diventa un segno, la finestra bruciata. Questo periodo comunque l'industrializzazione non si ferma, arrivano le serie, arriva di nuovo la necessità di riandare in teatro, però questa volta appaiono i fondali e appaiono gli effetti digitali e le finestre cominciano a vivere di nuovo. All'interno di questa, la faccio breve, all'interno di questa nuova vita delle finestre si colloca in modo interessantissimo il soft drop di Rosco, che crea per la prima volta un fondale che è adattabile a una situazione diurna e notturna. Questo è quindi il vero passo in avanti che questi fondali ci permettono di fare. Sono semplici, leggeri e gestiscono i 2 effetti principali, il giorno e la notte. E Sarah è la rappresentante importante, ha gestito film importantissimi. Io ho avuto il piacere e l'onore di lavorare con lei su Costiera, una serie per Amazon, e Sarah è una persona super competente, mi ha guidato passo passo perché io non avevo idea di come si dovesse lavorare su questi pannelli, e credo che adesso Sarah può spiegarci meglio questo con un po' una storia di quello che si vede dalle finestre. Infatti il titolo è "Non abbiate paura, aprite le finestre senza tende perché si può vedere fuori". È importante considerare che il livello di realismo che vedrete, soprattutto in No Time to Die, vedrete un livello di realismo impressionante, fra l'altro in un luogo come Matera, che è di per sé un luogo estremamente realistico, fatto di pietre, di muri sporchi, di rovine, quindi dove qualsiasi artificio è intollerabile. Voi vedrete su 007 il lavoro incredibile che è stato fatto con dei fondali noi, visto che io non avevo avuto esperienze, a Sara gli ho detto: guarda Sara, io non ho esperienza di fondali, facciamo quello che hanno fatto per 007 e basta, e mi fido così. Quindi questa è stata... Per dirvi chi è Sara viaggia da sola con un trolley, arriva in aeroporto a Napoli, prende la macchina in affitto, arriva direttamente sul set, fa delle fotografie bellissime, le scatta, fa tutto da sola, si riposa, alle 4 di mattina è di nuovo lì all'alba a fare tutto, ed è veramente una one woman crew. È proprio è straordinaria. E io ho imparato molto da lei e mi ha guidato su tutte queste questioni tecniche che qui sono ancora senza alcun significato, però lei darà significato, e mi ha guidato passo dopo passo e mi ha fatto fare bene. Non sarei riuscito senza di lei. Passo il microfono di là e vi ringrazio.
Mille grazie, Alessandro. Thank you. Parlo poco, un po' italiano, allora I have to speak in English. Sorry. I hope that's okay for everybody. Thank you very much to the CCS and Carlo and Luca and Francesca and Giuseppe for inviting Rosco. I'm really excited. I'm also pretty nervous to be here today. So, Alessandro already told you I'm an art director from international feature films. I first started working a very long time ago in 1984 in Elstree Studios outside of London. I had an education in a pre-digital age, so I learnt all the very traditional ways of making films, hand drawing, enormous drawings the size of bed sheets, using pencil, foreground miniatures, how to set up matte paintings with camera angles, all of this. It's something you can't learn anymore, so I'm very grateful for that. In the early 1990s, I moved to Berlin, which is where I'm still based, and I worked on quite a lot of large Hollywood shows as an art director, and you can see this on my IMDb if you're interested. And then in 2014, I started working for Rosco, and I now look after the market in Europe and the UK, and I do my great love, backdrop photography. I'd much rather just do the photography and not look after all the rest of it, but anyway, there you go. So this is how you can get in touch with me. There's 2 email addresses. The green one is more general. The website address, well worth looking at. I'll show it a little bit later as well. It's got a lot of resources and information on it about backdrops. And finally, I would love it if you could all become followers of our Instagram profile. It would make me very happy. So, Rosco, you might be thinking, well, aren't they the company that do the gels, the lighting gels? I didn't know they did backdrops. Well, we've actually been making backdrops for 30 years, nearly. We did the first day-night backdrop in 1997. And my colleague, Phil Greenstreet, who some of you here might know, was awarded an Oscar in 2000 for inventing, basically, the day-night photographic digital backdrop process, which has been copied by other companies since then. But we've been doing it for a long time, and I'm going to show you a short, very short, 1-minute-long promotional film now about some of the work that we've done. Hope this is going to work. Yes. No audio?
I have a vision.
Hang on. Try it again. Try it again. Okay.
I have a vision.
There's something funny going on.
You are a cardinal.
I take that as the highest praise.
had no idea what this was going to become. I know.
No rules.
So, fondali, how does that word make you feel when you hear it said for the first time in pre-production? You nervous? You worried? Excited? Maybe all of this. So, I'm going to try and take the mystery out of backdrops and show you some of your options, also for other backgrounds, and why you might decide for a backdrop. But before I do that, I'm going to show you what a day-night drop is, because I'm figuring quite a few of you might not actually know. So it's basically an image which has the identical image shot at day and night printed on top of each other, exactly aligned, on the front and the reverse side. And you can see that the reverse is basically a black mask, and there's a lot of yellow and white pigment that we put into the areas that should be illuminated, so that when this is front lit, and Ali will show you this later, but it appears to be day, and when it is backlit, the day image appears to be a nighttime image. It's not turned around. Quite a few people think that you turn the drop. You do not turn the drop around. You always see the day image, but it just appears to be a nighttime image because of the light that is shining through from the back, but you're going to see more of that later on. So this is produced on a cloth called soft drop, which is a very matte, heavy cotton. And we started producing it on this because the vinyl that we used to produce it on was too shiny, and the DPs came to us and complaining about it and said, we don't like it because we have to keep moving our lights around. And we were also having problems with the vinyl sending it because it has to go in very large, heavy cardboard rolls, and the airline companies were starting to refuse to take these. So we started producing soft drop in 2014. We produce it all in Berlin, which is where I'm based, and we have our global production facility there, and we send it out from there to the whole world. So when I first started working for Rosco, I was having a conversation with an art director in the UK, and she said something to me, and I've never forgotten it. She said, the most expensive backdrop is the one that doesn't work, which is kind of funny, but it's actually true, because even the cheapest backdrop will have cost time and money and effort to get right. And if it's not working, it means more time, more money, and more effort will have to be spent, probably in post-production, to get it right. So does that mean all backdrops have to be expensive? Well, they can be, but they don't have to be, because you can have a fast and cheap solution, which is using our rental warehouse. We have existing backdrops in Madrid, and then we have a warehouse in Madrid with 160 existing drops that you can rent tomorrow. We have another 500 in 2 warehouses on the east and west coast of America. But it's true to say that custom drops do need time, and they need your attention, and they actually need it at a time when you have no time, because you're in pre-production and you're looking at 100 other things. So it does make sense at that moment to work with a company that knows an awful lot about backdrops and that does have the time to take that workload off you. Does that cost money? Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's going to cost more than that backdrop that was decided on at the last minute, using the cheapest possible rates, printing at the cheapest possible rates, and using artwork that you were either working on yourself, if there's any production designers here in the house, or you approved at midnight last night after a 16-hour day. The most expensive backdrop is the one that doesn't work.
Infatti, scusami, a tal proposito io mi sono trovato durante una lavorazione A proposito di questa cosa che dice, una cosa abbastanza divertente, facciamo il sopralluogo, si montano tutto, c'erano 3 anatre che erano nel cielo, fisse, perché coloro che avevano fatto il fondale non si rendevano conto di questo problema che noi abbiamo coperto con tende, rami, tutto, perché c'erano queste 3 oche in volo, no, nel cielo. Ecco, quindi questo è quello forse che è l'esempio più giusto.
It is, yeah. So you might think, well, why have a backdrop at all? And I'm aware that this question is a luxury that many of you who shoot 90% of the time on location probably never get to ask or experience. And it's true to say that backdrops are not intended to be used on location. And we all know, I know, that shooting on location is quite a different process to shooting in the studios. And I think many producers underestimate how expensive it is to shoot on locations. I think many producers, particularly younger ones, see the location rental and think that's it, and compare that to the studio rental and go, we're not going to go into the studio. But they fail to calculate all of the associated costs that go with the location, which can mount up very rapidly from, we all know it, parking spaces, angry neighbors who have to be paid off, extra rooms for the cast, security for bad areas, all of these things. And all of these costs go towards paying for the location, but actually have nothing to do with the film that is seen on screen. And that's where you come in, because that's your job. Your job is to create the world that is seen on screen. And to do that, I believe you need to have the freedom to plan. And you need to have the freedom to build unique settings. And you need to have the freedom to tell the story using unrestricted camera movements, supported by a range of different lighting effects, one of which is backdrop. And this is what you get in a studio. Studios can also offer a place for that standing set that is seen in every single episode of a TV series or throughout the course of a film. And I'm talking about the police station or the hospital or the cafe. We all know, we've all seen them. And then that set can become the weather cover when you can't go outside because it's raining or something. And the other thing is that having all of your resources in one place is a much more sustainable and green way of making films than sending your crew off like a traveling circus across the whole of Italy or Rome or wherever that might be. But for me, the most important thing is that I believe that studio sets allow you as cinematographers to become storytellers in a way that locations never can. So we're all storytellers. So let's imagine you're in a studio. And sooner or later, you're going to have a discussion about the background and what's it going to be. And the thing is, it can be many things, and there's no wrong or right decision. You have a kit of parts. You have many tools available to you, not just backdrops. It could be a green or a blue screen. It could be an LED screen if you've got a lot of money. It could be projections, front or rear projections. It could be a painted scenic backing like we just saw. And it could also be a white-out lighting effect. Or you could just close the curtains and not look out the window, but we don't really want to do that. But sooner or later, what happened there? Oh no, that's right, it's okay, sorry. Sooner or later, you will need to have a background if the script calls for an iconic view over a city or a landscape. You're going to need some kind of background. If there's been a creative decision to make the background a character in its own right and use it as a kind of supporting cast member to tell the story. You are going to need some kind of background if you, with the director, have decided for a very specific, chosen visual, which in this particular case became a very practical decision for post-production visual effects because it avoided the need, you didn't have to have two lighting setups, one for a green screen in the background and one for a set in the foreground. You are going to need some kind of background if the director that you are working with needs to have his or her cast surrounded by a credible environment. And it's a bit misleading because this is not a credible environment, but for some directors it's more important than for others to have them surrounded not by blue or green screen. You are going to need some kind of background if the shooting schedule dictates that the exterior establisher location is shot elsewhere to where the interior set is. And you are also going to need some kind of background for that standing set that I mentioned that is seen at all times of day and night throughout the series. Now, of course, I've just shown you Rosco backdrops, apart from the green screen. But most productions... Sì, yeah. Sì.
Volevo dire una cosa importante. Quello che è interessante, che mi sono trovato ad affrontare, è che questi fondali improvvisamente sono veramente realistici. E mentre prima abbiamo fatto un accenno velocissimo sulla questione della luce ingegnerizzata, degli schemi esattamente, adesso anche il fondale deve subire da parte di chi illumina un trattamento differente, cioè bisogna quasi cercare l'errore, cioè il fondale deve lavorare nella zona limite della cinepresa e quindi è interessante come questo sistema preveda una consapevolezza dei limiti delle macchine da presa che normalmente vengono evitati per essere portati all'estremo. Ad esempio la prima inquadratura, non so che è Capitan America, the first one, tutto il fondo era bruciato. Ecco, per arrivare a quella concezione di bruciare il fondo bisogna arrivarci da direttori della fotografia, cioè creare un'immagine che sia al limite proprio del difetto, perché nel momento in cui non c'è questo concetto il fondale torna a essere non realistico. Basta, ecco.
Jumped ahead there. So, all productions that shoot in the studio are generally going to decide on a combination of any of those tools that I just described. And it will be a decision, like any other on a film production, that is made based on three basic things. The first thing is the cost. The second thing is the script. How often does this background appear in the script? And the third thing is on-screen values. What do I mean by on-screen values? I mean the money that is spent from the budget and seen on screen, not the money that is spent from the budget paying for a location rental or parking spaces or logistics of a location shoot. So let's have a look briefly at some of the other things before we come to backdrops. So, whiteout lighting effect. It's super effective, it's simple, it's a great creative decision, it's quite cost effective, but obviously you can't use it in every single shot of the film. You can have a painted scenic backing, and these are great, and they work in many ways very similar to a printed day-night drop, but they have a more limited lighting range because you can't really get the same day-night effects out of them. And it's a more painterly, theatrical style, so it's going to work for certain kinds of scripts, but not for all scripts. These two reference the kind of golden age of Hollywood epics, which Alessandro was showing the pictures of before, North by Northwest. And the final thing about scenic backings is there's actually hardly any good scenic artists left. I know of 3. And there's less and less every year. It's a talent that is disappearing, sadly. So green screen, we know all about green screen, don't have to talk about that very much. You have the issues of green pollution, we all know about that. You have a lot of costs that are associated with during the shoot, 2 different lighting setups. Post-production, all of those, endless credits that we see rolling at the end of any film of all the visual effects department. But I think the most important thing, at least for me, with green screen is that it's a virtual setting. You can't see what you're getting. You have no in-camera effect. So one way of getting around this would be to use projections, and these two images are actually separated by 10 years. The one on the right is from Oblivion in 2013, and the one on the left is from Solo, a Star Wars story. So when you use rear projections, you get around the problem of green pollution, and you get in-camera effects. And the other great thing is that you can use the projection screen off all of these reflective surfaces, and you don't have and it looks fantastic. But there's always a but. The projectors are very noisy. You have to put them into boxes, and even then you probably have to post-sync sound. They need to be synced to the camera, which means you need extra technicians on set during the shoot. And you probably won't want to turn them off overnight because it will take so long to resync it the next morning to the camera that you'll leave them running overnight, so there are marginal additional costs in all of that as well. So, LED screens. Car driving plates are here to stay. It's a great leap forward, and it's a huge benefit to everybody. We all don't have to go out onto the streets anymore, get permissions for the streets and be weather dependent, and it's better for the actors. And it's also possible that rent car plates these days. So this is certainly progress. But I am less convinced by virtual production personally and LED volumes. The sets on LED volumes are nearly always natural surroundings or landscapes because it lends itself very well to the curve of the volume. They are enormously expensive, and those prices are not coming down. You need a lot of people on set with you all the time when you are actually shooting, and if you want to create custom content during the shoot, that's actually going to slow you down as well, because you have to keep thinking about all of those things. So then, I think they're really good for car commercials who have an awful lot of money and love all of those reflective surfaces. So it's not, when COVID came, everybody thought they would be the answer to everything. I think they're a tool. They're another new tool, along with all the rest of it. And one little known fact that people in the art department know about, but hardly anybody else talks about, is you can't build a set on an LED volume because the screens are far too sensitive to dust and dirt. So, top left, Barbie, you have to build your set on a wheeled rostrum outside and then truck it in. So that's another additional cost on top of everything else that you have. So I'm just going to run through these background decision makers again. We have budget. You have what are my in-camera effects? How much lighting control do I have over it? What are my lighting options? What are the associated costs in pre-production? Content capture. The team on Oblivion went to the top of a volcano above the cloud line in Hawaii to shoot their content, so it gives you an idea of how much that costs. Transport, do I have to test a lot of it in advance? And how complicated is it to rig? And what are the associated costs during shoot? How much additional crew do I need? Running costs, I've talked about noise, syncing, and do I need additional lighting equipment? And then the same thing in post-production. Do I need a lot of visual effects? Strike is an English word, it means de-rig, like how easy it to take down. And can I get rid of it, or can I recycle it? So you can recycle a Rosco soft drop, and you can also recycle a LED screens, that's true to say. So with all of this in mind, and I'm going fairly fast because I know we have not much time, why would you then decide to choose a backdrop with all of these decisions in mind? So I'm going to use a case study of Halston, which is the series from Netflix. This was the reference photo that we were sent. My colleague Phil Greenstreet shot this. And it shows Halston in his office on the 21st floor of the Olympic Tower. And this was the brief for the background. And this is what it became. So much of Halston's life in the script was spent in this office that the production designer, Mark Ricker, knew he was going to have to build the office with these floor-to-ceiling windows, mirrored walls, and red carpets. And the soft drop you can see in the background is working like an analog projection screen or an analog version of an LED wall. It's giving you the same effect. It's bouncing the light. The DP can bounce his lights off the backdrop back into the set. And all of those glass surfaces and reflections are perfect. And this is one of my favorite examples of what I call naked soft drop. I love naked soft drop, when it's just the camera and the drop and there's nothing in between. There's no curtains or here, just a bit of glass. It works very well. So this is the stage set that was used, where you can see the drop, and it was built around a curve. And you can start to see in this some of this variable depth of field softening filter that we apply to every image. It's a fancy name for pixel blur, before it goes into production. And what we do is we don't just apply one level of softening, which will most other companies and also on LED screens you will get. We vary it, so it starts off soft and it gets progressively softer. The pixels get progressively larger as it goes into the background. And this was something that was requested of us from returning DPs who wanted to have an effect that the depth of field goes way out beyond the plane of the backdrop relative to an actor in focus in foreground. And the other really cool thing about this are these spires from St. Patrick's Cathedral. So St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York was so close to the Olympic Tower that it was in the image that Phil shot, but we removed it from the image digitally, and Mark built these spires as 3D elements, and they acted as a kind of bridge between the camera inside the set and the backdrop behind. And it's a fantastically good trick to know. You don't have to use anything as complicated as a Gothic spire. You could just place a very simple square built column as part of the sort of exterior architecture directly outside the window, so that when your camera tracks, you've got this thing that's moving with the parallax, and you're not going to question the background if you have this foreground element. Having said that, I'm going to carry on here. This is the other end of it, and you can see the other end of the curve and this large seamless size. And so this was basically a U-shaped drop, which I want to show you here, we actually did with 3 different vanishing points. I don't know if I have a pointer on here. Do I have a pointer? No. Oh, I just turned it off. What did I do? Oh, no. I won't do that. So this is one straight section here. You can see one vanishing point here. Here's the curve. Here's the second vanishing point. Here's the curve. And here's the third one. So it's never just a case of taking one image and blowing it up. We actually build the image to match to the shape of the studio set. And you can rent this if you would like to. It is available to rent from Rosco's warehouse on the east coast of America in Stamford, Connecticut. So you can also see how much detail went into the night image here, and you can see this in this shot, which was shot in the studio with the soft drop, super matte surface, couldn't do this with a vinyl, reflecting off the windows. So one of the reasons why soft drop was chosen for this was because of the matte surface and of the large size. We can print these drops up to 12 meters high. I don't know if I mentioned that before. Might have forgotten. Anyway, they can go up to 12 meters high. And because it was easy to rig and it was easy to light, and it was so much cheaper to do this than having anything else, such as a green screen, which you couldn't have had because of the reflections, or an LED wall, this was the best choice to make. So I'm going to talk a bit about, I had a few other examples, but maybe I'll do that next time because I just want to get through this. Pixel blur. Just to talk briefly about this, this explains the principle of pixel blur. As you can see, objects get progressively softer as you go into the background. And this is an example, and it's not an expensive job. I've shown this one because it was a budget of 5 million for this job. It was a German-Israeli co-production called Foxtrot, which had an image of Tel Aviv. 70% of the film played in an apartment with a view, with this view. And the filmmakers took most of their visual effects budget and put it into a single-sided soft drop, which is the cheapest version you can have. And then I divided it. You can see these colors here, so you can see the sense of what the levels were of the pixel blur. And down on the left here, you can see this actually working as it was hung in the studio. And here it is in our production facility as well. So after this, I have actually hung just down there on the side. There is a pixel blur sample, which you can go and have a look at. The numbers are a little abstract to understand. Basically, it's a Gaussian blur that we apply to the final print file before going into production. A 4 is our standard, what I would call across-the-street softening, so it's about 30 meters away, if that helps to imagine it like that. But obviously, street widths vary, as do distances in the studio, but it's a value that we have applied. There's no maths involved. This is something based on experience, our own experience, the type of image, the distance of the drop in the studio, and the T-stop. And that's it. Nobody has yet complained about too much blur, but some have wished that they had chosen more when they decided themselves. So the easiest thing is to let us decide it for you if it's your first drop. Yes?
Quello che sta dicendo lei praticamente a proposito delle sfocature, no? Quello praticamente è il principio della prospettiva aerea di Leonardo da Vinci. Man mano che si va sul fondo, la foschia rende sfocata l'immagine. E loro fanno questo lo costruiscono facendo il più vicino a fuoco. Man mano che si va giù c'è un degradé, e più sale e più l'immagine viene sfocata e quindi resa più credibile. E ricordiamoci che dobbiamo andare di là anche,
Yeah, yes. So this shows it inside and outside the very simple studio set, and this is actually how it turned out on the film itself. And you can see it's almost subliminal. You hardly notice it, and that's a really good backdrop. A really good drop is the one that you don't notice, and it should disappear. Kiss of death, a backdrop that is too sharp, because you're going to be looking at the thing going, there's something wrong with that image, and I don't know what it is. I saw this film when it was shown in Camera Image, I think it was 2019, and it looked fantastic, and they had a sort of dusk evening scene. They just turned the lights off. That's what you can do. They turned the lights off on the drop. It looked great. All they had to do in visual effects was go in and add some tiny little twinkles of light to the buildings in the background, but they had the template. They had the drop to use already, so it was a minimal cost. They didn't have to start from scratch with a green screen. And this is even cheaper, but this is 3 million euros, this film, this Crazy Heart, German independent film, another example of a single-sided drop. They established it for daytime here, and they just turned the lights off at night. And if the scene plays around the dining room table, you might not miss that you don't have twinkling lights outside. So I think there's always options for thinking outside the box and cheaper solutions. So just a quick thing, this is our website landing page. And you can see up on the top bar there, if you were to click on rentals, this would be how you get to the rental catalog. We have, I think I said, 160 in Madrid, 500 in America. We get these drops from customers who have ordered custom drops and return them to us after filming is completed, which is why you can now rent the drop from Halston. I would urge you, the only thing with this is you need to start thinking about them very early on in pre-production. and you can use the rental catalog, you can download the images and you can put them into your mood boards or use them for early discussions, but that way you have a chance of that image making it through to the final film. But if you come to us 1 week before, it's very unlikely that we're going to have something that's the right image and the right size. And this is just another thing from the website. This is resources, and you can see there's several masterclass videos that I made with Phil in 2019, I think it was now, about how we produce it, how you install it, how you light it, and a few other webinars. And here is Phil talking about lighting. Yes. So I'm just going to talk about this one very briefly. This was a job that Ale and I talked about a lot when we were working together. This is the drop that we produced. And there's this one shot from this where the camera moves out onto the balcony and continues to move out, and they added the flame effects in post-production here. And you can see that there's some more shots that, yeah. So I just wanted to show this behind-the-scenes shot of how they filmed that, of how they lit it, because this was that's Lena Sangren there, I think, and this was sent to me by the gaffer Dave Sinfield, and you can just see how many lights were behind it. And if you go, well, I'll let this run first so you can just get an idea. A lot. All right, so I'm going to finish it there. We're not going to see that one. Thank you very much.
Vi avevo detto che è bravissima, ha spiegato tutto. Allora, qui abbiamo preparato un piccolo setup. Mauro, tu vuoi dire qualcosa, per favore? Vieni? Anche Giuseppe, veloci. Tu hai lavorato con il software, vuoi dire 2 parole? Veloce anche tu, perché il tempo purtroppo sta finendo.
No, ma rapidamente.
Adesso facciamo intanto che tu dici 2 parole, io vado a parlare con i ragazzi.
Perfetto. Chiaramente da quello che vi hanno spiegato capirete che la vera sfida è rendere bene l'immagine di notte.
Mauro Pescetelli è un gaffer italiano bravissimo, per chi non lo conoscete.
Troppo buono. Comunque, mentre come è stato spiegato e comunque come potrete vedere anche adesso nella dimostrazione di là, per quanto riguarda la parte giorno è importante avere delle luci estremamente diffuse e già il panno rende automaticamente credibile l'immagine. Per quanto riguarda la notte c'è una serie di problemi che bisogna considerare.
Che avete visto nel bosco di Stativi che seguiva Matera.
Esattamente, allora quindi sarebbe, dove c'è la possibilità, è importante non metterli perché c'è una certa trasparenza e ovviamente ad esempio se si è costretti a mettere gli stativi bisogna lavorare diagonalmente perché si vede la fonte luminosa, quindi si è costretti a mettere bandiere, è un'esperienza che ho fatto la prima volta che ho usato il panno, una cosa drammatica, e quindi è importante invece avere un po' di spazio posteriore e il mio consiglio, quando vi è possibile, usarli molto dal basso, dove magari potete mettere una ribaltina e copre la fonte, e dall'alto con un'americana, o se c'è un camminamento come in questo caso io ho girato qui a Another End e abbiamo usato un panno di appunto Rosco, usare i sagomatori, perché i sagomatori vi permettono di gestire perfettamente le verticalità e i punti dove dovete andare e di tenere nero il cielo, che è la sfida più difficile effettivamente, quindi la credibilità di questa cosa nasce da quello, ovviamente poi dall'esposizione interna, ma quello è un discorso che conoscete tutti.
Adesso glielo facciamo vedere.
E glielo facciamo vedere, quindi non vi rubo altro tempo, lo vedete direttamente di là.
Bravo Mauro. Vuoi dire qualcosa? No.
Io volevo ringraziare il collettivo perché ho organizzato insieme a Alessandro questa masterclass e non avendo mai girato con dei fondali, ho sempre girato in esterno e lì il problema è quello di gestire gli eventi atmosferici, quindi la pioggia o le nuvole che passano, quindi il fatto di poter gestire la luce all'interno del teatro per noi è estremamente comodo, quindi grazie ad essere stato a fianco a Alessandro ho imparato anche all'illuminazione, che non è per niente semplice, ma ti dà tanta possibilità di inventiva, quindi avere un gaffer che ti segue anche in quelle piccole lavorazioni che poi vedrete di dietro, mi mette a disposizione a stare insieme a voi e a farvi vedere un po' dietro come è stato illuminato, quindi non vi rubo altro tempo. Vai, allora, andiamo di là. Grazie.
Flavio, adesso andiamo... No.